And I hope we have once again reminded people that man is not free unless government is limited. There's a clear cause and effect here that is as neat and predictable as a law of physics. As government expands, liberty contracts.
From this day forward, it's going to be only America first. America first.
Hey, welcome back to the Liberty Podcast. It's March 22, 2024. They say we're in the middle of March Madness, and boy, I don't even think that describes the half of it. And I'm not talking about basketball. I'm talking about a bunch of hockey pucks up in Washington, D.C. And before I go any further, let me share with you a phone number. I want you to write it down, and then I want you to call it repeatedly. Ready? Area code 202-225-3715. 202-225-3715. That will take you to the Washington, D.C. Capitol Hill office of Congressman Richard Hudson. Richard Hudson represents the 9th Congressional District, which happens to include Moore County, North Carolina. He today joined, and I'm not making this up, 101 Republicans who voted to pass an obscene, unvetted $1.2 trillion spending bill, because if we don't, the government might shut down on Friday at midnight. So what? This bill is a obnoxious dereliction of duty. Of course, it's so chock full of spending that 185 Democrats trampled over each other to go vote for it against 101 Republicans. And not just Richard Hudson, ladies and gentlemen, who I believe is now fully decked out in swamp attire from head to toe. His feet are now webbed entirely so that he can navigate the swampy halls of the U.S. Capitol. But he wasn't alone among North Carolina Republicans. Virginia Fox, Chuck Edwards, little Patrick McHenry, who got his feelings hurt earlier at the end of last year, and now he's not going to run again. Good. And also David Rouser, 4 other North Carolina Congress people failed to flippin' vote against this train wreck of a spending bill, which is remarkable for what it does not achieve, what it does not do for the betterment of the American people. But what's in this thing? Well, you're going to love this. $850,000 for a little pet project of the senator from Massachusetts, who thinks they need a gay senior living home. A gay senior living home. Okay, let that sink in. How absurd is that? $15 million being sent to Egypt to underwrite the college tuitions of Egyptian students. Not Egyptian students attending universities in the United States. Oh no, Egyptians going to college in Egypt. What? $400,000 allocated for a program that will provide attire in certain communities to children who want to hide their actual gender. I'm not even going to try to explain that, okay? $500,000 being donated to the San Diego Zoo, a very famous zoo, to allow it to infuse a diversity, equity, and inclusion program into the zoo experience. So I don't know if they've got like orangutans in there who are feeling, excluded. who are feeling that there's not enough diversity among the, I don't know, the zebra. Like there's too many with black and white stripes. I don't know what the issue is. But these are just some of the things. But let me also share with you, by the way, Richard Hudson, 202-225-3715. And here's another idea. He's got a fax machine, believe it or not. I don't know if it's turned on, but you could always send some letters by fax. Okay, and that's 202-225-4036. And he's got an office in Southern Pines. You can drive over there, or you can call them there. His field staff here, quaking in their boots. 910 is the area code. Then the phone number is also 910-1924. 910-190-1924. Give them a call and say, what are you doing? We have 34 plus trillion dollars in federal debt. We're adding $1 trillion to the debt every 100 days. Why can we not expect you to hold firm on a bill that actually cuts spending and does the one thing that needs to be done as the main priority, shuts down the southern border? If you don't want the government to shut down, President Biden and all you Dumbocrats, then shut down the border first. Do you know there's also spending in this bill that provides border security for the country of Jordan? The Jordanian border merits more of our attention than the U.S.-Mexico border. They tossed in another $300 million for Ukraine, which will go unaccounted for again into the black hole of the Ukrainian oligarchs. You can count on that. The congressman from Texas, who of course voted against this bill, and by the way, kudos to the great Dan Bishop, who is one district removed from being our congressman in Washington. Dan Bishop, currently a candidate for North Carolina Attorney General and finishing out his congressional term, as he always does, he voted no for this obscene kind of spending, $1.2 trillion to keep the government open so we don't have to close a monument so that the children won't be denied a visit. Well, they don't even know where the monuments are. And the woke teachers don't take them to federal government monuments and national parks anymore. They don't do that because they hate this country and they don't want to expose their kids to any of that stuff. Here's Chip Roy from Texas. Now, the House passed a bill, H.R. 2, way back when, that covers all kinds of mandatory priorities that Republicans, true conservative Republicans, want. The swamp bus, as he calls it, they call these bills omnibus bills. He calls this the swamp bus. All right, here are all the things that are in the original House bill that are not in the bill that they just passed. Making Department of Homeland Security funding contingent on Biden signing this bill into law, H.R. 2. It defunds Alejandro Mayorkas, the failing border czar. It prohibits mass parole and release of illegal aliens using the Customs and Border Patrol app. You know what they do with that app? They go in there and they make an appointment for a future asylum trial date, and then they never are seen again because then they go into the country and start murdering innocent Americans. What else would this bill have done if they passed the bill that they originally supported way back, H.R. 2? It would prohibit any remain in Texas policies, meaning they have to remain in Mexico if they're illegal immigrants. It prohibits the Department of Homeland Security from any asylum fast tracking. It restricts funds to Hamas-supported organizations like the anti-Israel UN Human Rights Council. It defunds all of Biden's student loan bailouts. He just hit us with another one of those. What was it? $6 billion? Another illegal, unconstitutional bailout. So why do we have to be angry all the time? Not because of what Democrats are doing to us, but because of what Republicans are doing to us. And what happened in March? A military veteran here in the community ran a primary campaign against Richard Hudson. What did he get? 18% of the vote or something? What are people voting for when they voted for Richard Hudson? Seeking, I believe, his 7th term. For those of you at home, that would be 12 going on 14 years up there. It's just maddening. And then when you get in their faces about it, they're like, well, gee, why are you trying to divide the Republican Party? Well, you're doing it to us. We're not doing it to you, you morons. Now, I've got some good news for you before you get over to the ledge there and start looking down at the street and contemplating, ending it all. Some good polling data came out in the past several days. And when I say good, I mean that it tells you that Americans are waking up to the absurdity of a Joe Biden presidency part 2, which would really be Barack Obama's 4th presidential term, as we know. But get this. Now, this is a CNN poll, fresh off the presses here. And there's a lot of polling data in this poll. Mainly, it shows us that in Michigan, Trump leads Biden by 50 to 42 in Michigan, which, Biden narrowly won by cheating in 2020. But here is the data point that I thought was really, really insightful and telling, okay? When asked about a hypothetical 4-way presidential matchup, including Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and this Cornel West, in addition to Trump and Biden, there is significant support for Kennedy. In Michigan, if this 4-way race were to come down, Trump would still lead with 40%, trailed by Biden at 34%, so it's still a wide margin. Kennedy gets 18%, and Cornel West gets 4%. That means there are 4% of Michigan people who shouldn't be allowed out of their houses or have driver's license because they would vote for Cornel West to be president of these United States. Doesn't that make you wonder who these people are? Seriously, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? Now let's get to the brunt of the CNN poll, which has a lot of other stuff in it. But I really thought that data point kind of buried in there was perhaps the most interesting one with the 4-way race. All right. CNN polled voters both in Michigan and Pennsylvania, 2 of the major northern battleground states. They were 2 states that flipped from red to blue, so-called, in the 2020 election. Not really, because we know that the pandemic was leveraged to totally deplete that election of any of any legitimacy whatsoever. Okay, new CNN polling. Surveys of registered voters find a dead-even race between Trump and Biden in Pennsylvania, 46%. At this point in the game, that should make the Biden candidacy very worried, okay? And then Trump is ahead in Michigan, 50 to 42. Both polls were conducted after Trump and Biden clinched enough delegates to win their party's nomination for president, which happened last week in the Tuesday primaries. You're going to love this data point. In Michigan, women are split about evenly, and Biden's margin among voters of color is narrower than it was in 2020, and he trails Trump by significant margins among independents and young voters. Sizing up their choices in the rematch between Biden and Trump, most voters in both states, Pennsylvania and Michigan, say they've already decided who they're voting for. But about a quarter of them in each state say they could change their minds between now and the election. And what would do that to them? Oh, let's see. The return of inflationary forces on the economy, talk of a emerging recession, continued inflationary prices at the grocery stores and retail stores and at the gas pumps. That could shift them over the next 6 or 8 months, right? If those quarter of the surveyed in each state change their minds, that's more than enough to swing the eventual outcome in these 2 pivotal states, both of which Biden won by slim margins in 2020. Okay? There's even more room for movement among several key subgroups. Now, this is CNN's poll, folks. I mean, this is not, what we would call a conservative polling operation. In Michigan, 45% of independents and 41% of voters younger than 35 say they're less than solidly decided, with 32% of independents and 34% of young voters saying the same thing in Pennsylvania. They are less than solidly decided, meaning they are all ears, all eyes. Show us why we should vote for you, you clown, doddering old Joe Biden. Here's another data point from the same CNN poll. Registered voters in both states were asked, if the candidate is elected again, do you think as his second term as president would fundamentally change things in the United States? Fundamentally change things. With Biden winning, they say there's a 25% chance that there would be anything of fundamental consequence changing in our country, which, given the amount of necessity for dramatic change, that tells you that they don't expect much out of doddering Joe if he would ever get in the White House for another term. However, 54% of those surveyed by CNN believe that if Trump is elected, there will be fundamental change in the U.S. More than half believe that a Trump presidency equates to fundamental change, which means they're paying attention. And they remember, because they don't have Alzheimer's disease, what it was like just a few short years ago to live in the United States under a Trump presidency. Energy independence, no global conflicts, a roaring economy, record employment among Black and Hispanic voters, record employment, not unemployment, people with jobs. You remember that? It was like so long ago, like, 2019, 2020? Yeah. Okay, here's another poll by Rasmussen, very reputable pollster of many decades. Thursday, March 21, yesterday. All my troubles seem so far away. In this poll, nearly half of voters say they've been personally hurt by President Joe Biden's policies, and by an 11-point margin, think his economic policies are worse than former President Donald Trump's. I'm surprised it's not more than 11%, to be honest with you. Nearly half of voters say they've been personally hurt by President Biden's policies. And some of them weren't available to be surveyed by a pollster because they've been more than hurt by President Biden's policies. They've been maimed and murdered by illegal immigrants. You might be familiar with a social media brand group called Libs of TikTok. Libs of TikTok. Now, they are a tongue-in-cheek operation that I guess they launched their notoriety, their popularity began on TikTok, but they now have, since that time, spread to all different social media platforms. And Libs of TikTok is a recognizable entity. And what they did, which I thought was an excellent public service during this past week, is they aggregated a list of the names of innocent Americans who've been killed by illegal immigrants going back to last year, maybe even longer, because people seem to be fixating on this one tragic death of the University of Georgia nursing student, Laken Riley, or as Joe likes to call her, Lincoln, because he doesn't care if she's dead, alive, Riley, Lincoln, Ford, Washington, he doesn't care. But there's been a lot of fixation, as there should be, on her. They found another, dozen reported cases of many, mostly young, innocent victims of all manner of thuggish illegal immigrants. And they posted that on X, also rightfully known as Twitter, correctly known by those of us with half a brain as Twitter. And if you want to go on, search Libs of TikTok on Twitter, and you'll find they posted a really heart-wrenching collage of the photos of all these victims of illegal immigrant murder. That's what they do. They don't just maim, they don't just threaten, they kill. And they're going to keep doing it. And it's coming to a community near you, Richard Hudson. Here's another one. Trump leads battleground states on economic arguments. Americans grow increasingly frustrated with the miserable economy, which presents particular hurdles for workers of modest means. These angst-ridden masses of struggling citizens blame Biden for their woes, as proven by brand new battleground polling. These voters resent the propaganda attempts of the media to make them believe a lie about their own challenging financial reality. They don't like it one bit when the mass media tries to tell them that the Biden economy has launched a major comeback. They don't believe it for 1 second, ladies and gentlemen. So what are we finding? These are tough economic times of tremendous anxiety across the land, and the latest polling proves this point. The League of American Workers just canvassed the critical swing state of Arizona. Pollster North Star Opinion Research queried 600 likely voters evenly split between Trump and Biden back in 2020. Overall, Trump leads by 4% in Arizona. But on the key decision point of Trump versus Biden on the economy, the former president enjoys a stunning 18 percentage point advantage over Biden. When asked if they were better off under Trump or Biden, citizens of the Grand Canyon State, Arizona, break 53 to 35 for Trump, a huge margin of people yearning for the days of the Trump boom. Women, who often do the bookkeeping in most households and pay the bills, are particularly aware of the spiraling costs of the staples of life under Biden. Basic groceries under Biden have vaulted higher by 44%, from $675 a month on average in 2021, when he barged into the Oval Office and knocked over lamps and tripped on the furniture and on the rugs and everything. $675 a month in 2021, $975 a month now. Now, for the average household, a $300 a month, $3,600 a year uptick in grocery costs alone is crippling. And then what do people do? They start skimping on nutrition. They start looking for cheaper, faster, easier things to eat, which don't always equate to healthy choices. It has a spiraling effect, of which there can be no doubt. All right, now I think many of you were paying attention at the start of this week when the Supreme Court assembled to hear a case, Moultrie versus Missouri, which has major First Amendment implications. Basically, the case centers around two states, Missouri and Louisiana, and some other individual plaintiffs, bringing to the Supreme Court's attention the chilling idea that during the pandemic, the federal government deliberately trampled on the First Amendment by instructing, if not demanding, social media platforms to remove information that did not comply with the COVID narrative, which was masks work, get a vaccine, get a boost, get 2 boosts, stay 6 feet apart, stay at home. You should lose your job if you don't do what we say. You should be run out of the military without your pension if you don't subject to mRNA experimental serum jabs into your healthy soldier bodies. Those kind of things. This was a big case. In the course of the question and answer by the Supreme Court justices, Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, This is not Jackson Browne of 1970s vocal musician fame. This is Ketanji Brown Jackson, who you will recall was deliberately nominated by Joe Biden to be the Supreme Court because she is Brown Jackson. He said that he would definitely whittle his choices down to a person of color, which left him with a very small pool of eligible candidates. And we got Ketanji Brown Jackson. And now we know why that was a very bad idea. She suggested during oral arguments that the First Amendment should not be allowed to, quote, hamstring the government during a crisis. Oh, yeah, you wouldn't want those First Amendment rights getting in the way of tyrannical government control. She asked the solicitor of Louisiana a rather revealing question about the First Amendment issue. And she said, and I quote, "So, my biggest concern is that your view has the First Amendment hamstringing the government in significant ways in the most important time periods." You know, meaning when we're trying to control your life and your movement and your ability to earn a living and the ability of your children to go to school, those kind of things. When we're totally hijacking your medical and personal liberty. The Supreme Court justice presented an extremely unlikely hypothetical that most American young people would find very insulting. She presented a scenario in which young people took cell phone videos of their peers jumping out of windows, and that trend then goes viral on social media. Big tech companies failing to take action on their own and the government wanting to stop it. She asked the Solicitor General of Louisiana, "What would you have the government do? I've heard you say a couple of times that the government can post its own speech, but in my hypothetical, kids, this is not safe, don't do it. It's not going to get it done." So I guess some might say that the government actually has a duty to take steps to protect the citizens of this country, and you seem to be suggesting that that duty cannot manifest itself in the government encouraging or even pressuring platforms to take down harmful information. Well, what was harmful about misinformation on, let's say, therapeutic treatments for the COVID-19 infection was that people were being told that vitamin D and ivermectin and other very well-established therapeutics, including some doctors, were being told, don't you use those. You must comply with the pharmaceutical company's fast-tracked experimental serum, period. That's it. So this is what we're dealing with in this case. Now, they heard the oral arguments, and unfortunately, afterwards, the general analysis of the hearing was that several of the justices seemed to be suggesting that there were exceptions to First Amendment protections when it comes to government intervention. Now, we're supposed to have a staunchly conservative Supreme Court. If they can't figure out a way to chalk up a victory in this case when their ruling comes out later this year, then we know that John Roberts has hijacked even the conservatives on this court, and we don't get to breathe easy when the court assembles to make important rulings on behalf of the American people. We thought that was baked into the cake with this court. John Roberts, Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, Amy Coney Barrett, but apparently not. Apparently not, ladies and germs. All right. One last thing I want to share with you on the way out the door here on the 22nd of March. By the way, this beautiful flag, I've been neglecting to show it to you because of the camera angle. I changed it up today. Metal Art of Wisconsin. This is a beautiful polished wood and metallic piece of art that happens to depict Old Glory, the American flag. I suggest you go online to Metal Art of Wisconsin and avail yourselves of their beautiful inventory, which should be adorning your home or office ASAP. It's a father and son team out of Wisconsin, thus Metal Art of Wisconsin. See how that works? And I'm enamored of their products. I have my famous beautiful red, white, and blue soaring eagle that you often see in the other studio backdrop that we've been using. All right, here we go. Here we go. Last week, a company called Gladstone AI published a report which was commissioned by the U.S. State Department. that detailed the apparent catastrophic risks posed by untethered artificial intelligence technology. Well, I don't think we needed a study to tell us that there are risks posed to our way of life by AI. The report, which was the result of more than 200 interviews with AI researchers, leading AI labs, and prominent AI executives, was conducted by a team from Gladstone over the past year. It warns that if it remains unregulated, AI could, quote, pose an extinction-level threat to the human species. The report, which has been reviewed by a publication called TheStreet.com, reviewed in full, focuses on two key risks: the weaponization of AI and a potential loss of human control. Really? I think we all thought about this like the minute we heard about AI coming into our lives. Here's what they're saying. In terms of weaponization, the report warns that models can be used to power everything from mass disinformation campaigns to large-scale cyber attacks, going on to suggest that advanced future models of AI might be able to assist in the creation of biological weaponry. You know, like something 100 times worse than the pandemic. The risk of control, according to the report, is based on future highly advanced and theoretical models that, in achieving superhuman capabilities, may engage in power-seeking behaviors that become effectively uncontrollable. Okay, so that's something you can think about as you're watching your favorite college basketball teams this weekend in the big tournament. And we want you to enjoy your life and watch basketball and get ready to play some golf this spring and do all those things. But we want you to be informed, and we want you to be properly ticked off toward your elected representatives who give you the middle finger every time they vote, as they did today, for a spending bill such as this one, which funds everything under the sun except what? An end to never-ending wars around the globe and a secure southern border. A secure southern border. Say her name, President Biden. Laken Riley. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for finding us again here in the Liberty Podcast studio on this 22nd day of March. We hope you have a great weekend, and we'll see you right here again next week, next time.